Garrett Hartle is made successfully the smallest Wait, these aren't reticulated pythons. Oh my God, these are roundworms. Ew, ascarids and nematodes. Oh my. What the hell are these? Well, we're gonna tell you.
Good intro.
Right?
That was actually really good.
I don't think there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna really want this.
Well, you got to make them in fancy colors first.
Wait a minute, dude. These aren't reticulated pythons. These are, ew. These
What?
are friggin' parasites, dude.
How much do you charge for these?
Nothing. They suck.
Literally.
It's gross. Where do they come from?
All right, so we're going to tell you a little bit about these. What are these? So we have roundworms, ascarids, nematodes. Oh my! And what this is, somebody gave us a chicken, a pet chicken that I guess died, and we fed it to one of our snakes. That chicken was a free-range chicken. So I was running around, and this is actually what happens in your environment. You have all sorts of things like nematodes and hookworms and ascarids and nasty things in the normal environment. So the chicken, as it's going around doing its normal life, it's ingesting the eggs and the nematodes and the larvae and all this stuff. So it becomes part of this animal's body. Then the snake eats the chicken, and now when it digests it, it poops out some of these worms. And what we want to do is we need to interrupt the life cycle of these parasites, which are quite common. Certainly cats and dogs and a lot of pets will have them. So we need to worm the animal, and I'm actually going to tell you about how to do that. Here's two wormers. And these wormers are both available to you through a grain and feed store, any kind of place that deals with horses and goats and sheep and stuff like that. So those same wormers can also use with great success to worm a reptile if you feel that there's a problem, and there's ways to do it. So you need to adhere to a certain methodology and dosing of these animals. So if I use Panacur, so this is fenbendazole, Panacur, this is very, very commonly used, and we use it for, bovine, sheep, cattle, horses, all that different stuff like that, because these are all outside animals that are constantly in a state of a new level of parasites, infestation. So what you do is you routinely worm your animals, and you basically keep them so they're really healthy. If you don't manage the parasite loads, it's very stressful for the animal. They're going to have problems with body weight. They also get all sorts of different ailments and fail to thrive. So with something like this, I recommend the dose for, let's say if we're going to talk about reticulated python, I would go 50 milligram to 100 milligram per kilogram. So you'd weigh the animal, and so if you weigh it in pounds, to convert pounds to kilogram, you take the pounds divided by 2.2 equals, and then we're going to dose it for a big reticulated python. We would say 100, which means 100 milligrams of fenbendazole is in the liquid suspension for every cc or ml. So we would then take whatever the dose is, and we would draw that out. And this is an oral wormer. So that means I'm going to put it into the GI tract, and I can put this inside a small food item. And so I'm just going to bomb the animal. What's good about fenbendazole, it's very well tolerated by a lot of reptiles. Some animals with a higher metabolic rate or something. I was reading one thing about phase vipers. Phase vipers do seem to suffer some kind of toxicity from fenbendazole, but generally, in my opinion, from whatever I've done, this is very safe to use. 50 to 100 milligrams. I treat it once, and then 7 to 10 days later, I do it again, and you can do 7 to 10 days later after that. It's quite safe, and it's also very effective in lizards. So I'm going to now treat this big reticulated python with the appropriate amount of this, and I'm going to probably overdose it, because I'm actually just going to estimate her weight, and then I'm going to put it into a food item, and she's going to digest it. And the one thing that's really good about this remains in the GI tract, so it's not like this bloodborne. So you can take something like ivermectin, which is far more toxic in many cases, but when I put it into the GI tract, actually animals digesting and exposing any kind of parasites in its GI tract, it's very effective against those parasites, and it doesn't have a lot of consequences. But everything is best done if you use a vet. If you know a vet that has experience, this is pretty basic stuff, so it's always good. But I've been doing this a long time, so I've had to teach myself so much. But like I said, this is very, very effective. This kills nematodes, ascarids, roundworms, some lungworms. So if you're doing lungworms, it's probably not the best choice for lungworms because you have to do more frequent successive doses to actually really kill that off. But this is really good for nematodes, ascarids, roundworms, I think one type of tapeworm even. But if I want to deal with flukes, liver flukes, and cestodes like tapeworms, I'm going to change that to this. And that's valbendazole. This, besides killing the ascarids, nematodes, hookworms, all that stuff, it also can kill flukes and tapeworms, and they use this a lot for sheep and whatnot. And the one thing that's really interesting about what this does, the reason how this actually kills it, I think actually fenbendazole prevents the glucose being taken up by these parasites in the tract. So I think like if I use ivermectin, it actually attacks the nervous system of these parasites. In this case, it actually interrupts the glucose intake of these parasites, which basically, stops these animals to be able to function right. So remember, whenever you're worming an animal, you're poisoning the animal enough to kill the parasites it carries without killing the animal. And every single wormer comes with the other side. You need to understand it. You need to understand what the effective is. And you can't just use this willy-nilly without understanding certain animals. Let's say if I was going to worm an animal with a very fast metabolism, like a crebo or a indigo snake, I would probably reduce my dosing to 50 milligram per kilogram. And once again, treat 7-10 days later, and then probably 7 to 10 days later. If it's an animal that is always eating things like frogs and lizards, it's kind of a really high parasite base. So sometimes my worming might occur over a month and a half to really interrupt all the life cycles of those parasites. But this is just some basic knowledge, and look how disgusting those things are.
Still there.
I gotta turn my camera on, dude.
You didn't turn your camera on.